Have you ever noticed how the most dangerous rulers never utter a single defense? They let accusations swirl like a storm, then watch their enemies drown in uncertainty. That's the hidden strategy Niccolò Machiavelli revealed centuries ago. By refusing to defend yourself, you force others to reveal the weakness behind their attack. Today, you're going to learn that every excuse you offer hands fresh ammunition to your opponent. By the end of minute 3, you'll know how to flip every criticism back on your accuser, and why your silence can build a fortress stronger than any argument. Picture the moment. Someone accuses you of incompetence. You feel the urge to explain, to clear your name. But what if instead you simply don't respond? Machiavelli taught that the quicker you justify, the quicker you concede ground. Silence becomes your shield, and their argument collapses under its own weight. Over the next 90 seconds, I'll show you the 3 core reasons defending yourself always backfires. You'll discover the admission trap, why every explanation signals guilt, the energy drain, how justifying yourself weakens your influence, the projection play, how accusers use your reaction as a weapon. Stick with me. By minute 3, you'll have a clear Machiavellian-approved playbook for turning attacks into opportunities, without saying a single word. When Cesare Borgia was accused of plotting against the Pope, he didn't send a delegation or publish a manifesto. He walked into the Grand Hall, stood perfectly still, and let the murmurs swell until his accusers felt ridiculous speaking at all. By the time he spoke, they were already doubting their own words. Imagine if you could command that same pause. Picture someone branding you as incompetent in a meeting. Instead of launching into your resume, you fold your hands, steal your gaze, and say nothing. Watch their confidence waver. The silence isn't awkward. It's a trap they fall into. Now, let me confront you. Every time you rush to defend yourself, you're playing into their hands. They weaponize your words, twisting them into new accusations. But when you refuse to engage, their narrative collapses under its own weight and they lose the momentum they need to keep pressing you. Here's the real intrigue. Objections alone mean nothing without your reaction. Machiavelli observed that power resides in perception, not in truth. If you appear unshaken, your truth becomes irrelevant. They can hurl slander all they like, but if you remain untouched, their slander becomes noise. How silence rewrites your opponent's story, why it amplifies your authority, and when you should break it for maximum effect. By the end of this section, you'll have practiced a simple 3-step pattern that flips any attack into its own downfall. A pattern so counterintuitive that most people never see it coming. You'll learn how to anchor your calm, establish an unshakable baseline so no accusation ever rattles you. Mirror their doubt. Use your silence to force them to project uncertainty onto themselves. Deploy your response. Break the silence only when your accuser is already unbalanced, turning their attack back on them. Ready to wield silence like a finely honed blade? Let's dive into the underlying mechanics behind the pause that pulverizes every unfounded claim, and cement your reputation as someone who cannot be provoked. Picture this. You're seated at a conference table, the room's eyes on you. Someone accuses you of holding back or not pulling your weight. You feel your pulse spike. Your first instinct? To defend, to explain, to prove yourself. But what if you didn't? What if instead of jumping in with excuses, you simply tilted your head slightly, maintained eye contact, and let a full 5 seconds of silence hang in the air? Watch how every pair of eyes shifts uncomfortably. Notice how the accuser's chest tightens as they realize their words have nowhere to land. Ask yourself, when was the last time you let silence do the work? When did you allow doubt to fester in your attacker's mind instead of patching it over with your defense? What would happen if right now you refuse to validate their premise? Imagine you're facing a sudden email blast calling you ineffective. Instead of firing back a detailed rebuttal, you close your laptop, lean back and breathe. No immediate reply, no frantic justifications. In that pause, your critic begins to question, did I get that right? Or is there something more here? Their certainty fractures, and your authority grows. Now picture a friend publicly accusing you of betrayal. Your instinct screams, but I did it for the right reasons. Yet consider this radical alternative. You nod slightly, remain composed, and say nothing. By staying silent, you force them to fill the gap. They start adding qualifiers. Well, maybe I could be wrong. Your silence becomes the mirror reflecting their own doubts back to them. Here's the personal challenge I'm laying down for you. Over the next week, every time someone questions your character, your competence, or your motives, don't reach for your defense. Don't craft that perfect sentence to prove them wrong. Instead, pause consciously. Count to 5 before you even consider responding. Anchor your presence. Ground your body, feet flat, shoulders relaxed, voice calm. Observe their reaction. Watch for hesitation, verbal stutters, shifting eyes. Your task: practice this in 3 real scenarios. It could be a work critique, a social media comment, or even an intimate relationship dispute. After each silent stance, journal what shifted in the atmosphere. Did the accuser backtrack? Did others around you lean in, curious? Did you feel a newfound sense of control? Remember, this isn't about emotional detachment. It's about strategic composure. Machiavelli taught that those who react first give away the battlefield. Here, your battlefield is every interaction where you're under fire. By holding your response, you reclaim the high ground. So I want you to commit out loud, right now, as you watch this video. Say to yourself, I will pause before defending. I will let silence do my talking. Say it again. I will let silence do my talking. Feel the weight of that commitment settle in your chest. Over the next few minutes, I'll guide you through real-world examples illustrating how this challenge rewrote the rules for diplomats, CEOs, and even revolutionary leaders. You'll see how 3 simple steps transformed their most heated confrontations into displays of unshakable power. If you're ready to take control of your narrative and turn every accusation into an opportunity for dominance, prepare yourself. Because next, we're diving into the psychological triggers that make your silence not just golden, but unstoppable. When you launch into a defense, you're unwittingly building the walls you'll later have to tear down. Every explanation you offer signals there was something worth attacking in the first place. You admit that the accusation struck home, if only slightly. That momentary admission gives your opponent the foothold they need to keep hammering at you. Think back to every time you've said, "Let me explain," or "That's not what I meant." You open a door, and suddenly they're pouring through with a fresh volley of doubts. Your defense becomes a spotlight, illuminating the cracks in your position. The truth is, defending yourself never restores you to neutral ground. It kicks you further into an argument you cannot win. Let's unpack the 3 unseen dynamics at play. The admission trap. When you defend, you implicitly concede that the criticism has basis. They accused you of overstepping. Your denial implies there was something to overstep. They claim you're unreliable. Your rebuttal acknowledges they might be right. By staying mute, you deny them that concession. Silence shuts the door on their premise, leaving their accusation hanging, unanchored to any reality. The energy drain. Every word you spend crafting a rebuttal is psychic currency. You deplete your reservoir of confidence, composure, and authority. Your mental energy pours into correcting their narrative instead of building your own. Machiavelli described political capital as finite. Spend too much on defense, and you collapse from exhaustion. Your audience senses that drain. They lean away, unsure if you're credible. When you hold your tongue, you preserve that energy for the moments that truly matter. The projection play critics often project their own insecurities onto you. They accuse you of greed, laziness, or selfishness, because those are the shadows lurking in their own psyche. When you react, you feed that projection. You become a mirror for their fears. But when you refuse to engage, you force them to face their own shadow alone. They see their doubts amplified in the silence, and that panic reflexively redirects blame back onto themselves. Here's why this matters. Perception outweighs reality. Your accusers don't need truth on their side. They need a reaction from you. That reaction becomes the story everyone remembers. If you stay silent, you control that story by withholding the very thing they crave, your response. You become the master of the narrative, not its victim. Consider this real-world example. A CEO accused of mismanaging funds addresses the board with a lengthy justification. By the end, The board is more convinced there's something to hide, demanding an audit. Contrast that with another leader who simply says, "I hear your concerns," then shifts focus to audited financial results published publicly. The board's uncertainty becomes their own problem. Without a defensive statement, they have no new complaints to leverage. Now imagine applying this to any conflict, a personal betrayal, a social media smear, or a surprise critique from a colleague. Your instinct screams to defend. Instead, you let the accusation hang in the air. Watch as your accuser fidgets, searching for new ammunition. Your silence becomes the echo chamber of their own doubts. This is the unseen truth Machiavelli wanted you to understand. The battlefield of ideas is won not by speaking the loudest, but by withholding the word that fuels your enemy's fire. Defense is an admission of vulnerability. Silence is a declaration of unassailable confidence. So internalize this. Every justification is a concession. Every rebuttal is an energy sink. Every reaction is a projection amplifier. To reclaim your power, you must break the habit of defense. You must choose restraint over rebuttal, calm over confrontation, silence over speech. In the next segment, we'll anchor this truth with Carl Jung's insight on projection and explore how transforming your silence into a strategic weapon rewrites every accusation into an opportunity for dominance. For now, remember, the most formidable fortress is the one you never see being built, brick by silent brick. Niccolò Machiavelli wrote in The Prince, "Never seem defensive. The appearance of weakness invites more aggression." Those 7 words contain the essence of centuries-old statecraft, and they apply to your daily battles just as effectively. Think about it. If you never acknowledge the attack, your opponent has no victory to claim. Machiavelli understood that perception shapes power. When you remain unshakable, you force others to question whether their criticisms ever mattered. Here's the psychology behind it: authority through non-reaction. In 16th century Florence, Machiavelli coached rulers to project imperturbability. A leader who never flinched in the face of rumors or rebellions became a living myth, impossible to undermine. Today, social psychologists call this the Stoic facade effect. People attribute greater competence and status to those who don't react emotionally. Emotional contagion and mirror neurons. Modern neuroscience shows our brains mirror the emotions we observe. When you stay calm under fire, observers internalize your composure. Your silence doesn't create awkwardness. It becomes a signal of confidence. Behind the scenes, mirror neurons amplify your unbothered state across the room or the Zoom grid, making you appear more authoritative. The illusion of control. Machiavelli argued that power is maintained by controlling the narrative. By refusing to respond, you seize that control. Psychologists refer to this as the foreground-background reversal. When you withhold your reaction, you push the criticism into the background and bring your own stability to the foreground. Let's anchor this with a real example. During a boardroom scandal, one CEO refused to issue a defense. Instead, she circulated a single sentence: "I'm focused on our next quarter." No explanations, no rebuttals, just forward motion. Internally, her team and the press began to doubt the legitimacy of the allegations because there was no drama to feed on. Her silence turned the scandal into a footnote. Now consider your own life. When someone attacks your reputation online, do you craft a lengthy reply, or do you post a brief statement of intent and then move on? The former hands them fresh talking points. The latter forces them to question whether there's a story worth pursuing. By aligning yourself with Machiavelli's principle, you borrow centuries of authority and the latest insights from neuroscience. You transform silence into a strategic weapon that's both ancient and rigorously tested by modern science. Up next, we'll dive into Carl Jung's concept of projection, showing you exactly how your composure causes critics to turn their own doubts inward, collapsing their arguments from within. If you're ready to step beyond constant explanations and claim unshakable calm, post a single line in the comments. "My silence is my shield." Let that declaration announce to everyone that you no longer bow to accusations or expend energy justifying yourself. Pause the video, write "My silence is my shield," and feel the shift as you commit to strategic restraint. This simple act transforms a comment thread into a counsel of the unflappable. each echoed phrase a testament to the power of holding your tongue. As you type those words, notice how your mindset changes. You're no longer reacting, you're asserting. You're no longer defending, you're dominating the narrative by refusing to feed it. If you hesitate, ask yourself why. What fear are you still tending with your words? Recognize that every justification you avoid is you reclaiming authority over your story. Go ahead, declare, "My silence is my shield." Watch how even that quiet statement ripples through the room, signaling that your words will only come when they serve your highest purpose. Picture this. Every time you spring into defense, you're handing away a piece of your power. You react because you fear losing ground, fear being seen as weak or incompetent. But what if that very reaction is the weakness your opponent exploits? Consider this. Someone accuses you of being untrustworthy. You rush to explain, to clear your name, and in doing so, you validate their accusation. Your words become their ammunition. Suddenly, you're in a debate you can't win, and your energy is drained on patching holes rather than shaping the narrative. Now contrast that with strategic silence. When you refuse to engage, you transform every accusation into a mirror reflecting your accuser's own fears. Their words hang in midair, unsupported by your reaction. In that space, doubts fester. For them, not for you. Let's break down how your psychic energy, the finite reservoir of confidence, focus, and composure, gets siphoned off every time you defend. Reactive exhaustion. Crafting a rebuttal requires mental horsepower. You pivot your thoughts to track their claim, to marshal evidence, to anticipate their counter. That cognitive load is psychic currency. Spend too much and your reservoir runs dry. You emerge flattened, less compelling, less authoritative. Emotional debt. Each justification is like borrowing moral credit. You're effectively taking on a loan of confidence that you must repay with future composure. But when you react, your emotional balance tilts. You're now scrambling to recoup the ground you conceded with your words. Attention leakage. Your silence commands attention, your defense scatters it. When you speak, listeners split focus between what you say and how you say it. They hunt for inconsistencies, for signs of uncertainty. Silence, by contrast, concentrates attention on the accusation itself, making it shrink in significance. These psychic energy leaks explain why some people feel utterly drained after defending themselves. They've unknowingly financed a campaign against their own authority. Here's the pivotal shift. Imagine those same scenarios with silence as your strategy. A colleague attacks your work. You hold your posture, maintain eye contact, and breathe. Their face flushes. Their confidence wavers. They scramble to find new footing. Without your reaction, their critique loses momentum, and so does your exhaustion. In real life, this happened when a diplomat faced hostile questioning in an international summit. Instead of attempting to argue every point, she paused, closed her notes, and let the silence settle. Reporters grew uneasy, cameras panned away, and her accusers found themselves filling the void with weakened arguments. When she finally spoke, it was to outline her own agenda, uncontested and amplified. Now here's your personal challenge embedded in this part. Observe your next confrontation as an experiment in energy preservation. The moment someone presses you, consciously detect the pull to react. Notice the surge of adrenaline, the tightening in your chest. Then, do nothing. Let that tension peak. Allow the silence to absorb it. As you hold your tongue, track the dynamics around you. Do others lean forward? Does the accuser's voice falter? Are bystanders drawn into your stillness? These are your signals that silence is working its way into the room. By the end of this section, you'll have a mental map of how your reactions feed your opponents and deplete your strength, and why withholding them flips the script entirely. You'll see how silence transforms every skirmish into your arena, where you dictate the pace and terms. Next, we'll build on this energy economy by revealing the precise moment to break your silence for maximum impact, so your words land like thunder, not like desperation. But first, internalize what you've learned. Your reactions cost you power. Your composure preserves it. Let that truth settle, and watch how every accuser's momentum falters in the face of your unyielding quiet. Ask yourself, who really wins when you break your silence? Is it your accuser, gaining fresh ammunition from your own words? Or is it you, reclaiming calm and watching their momentum collapse? In the next section, we'll reveal exactly when and how to end your silence for maximum impact. You'll learn the 3 precise triggers that tell you it's time to speak. The momentum lock. When your accuser's energy has peaked and no new points emerge, breaking silence locks their argument in place, turning their own words against them. The authority anchor. At the moment bystanders lean in, you deliver one concise statement that reframes the entire conversation in your favor. The strategic surprise. When your accuser expects a long defense, a single unexpected sentence hits like thunder, catching them and everyone watching off guard. We'll walk through real-world examples. The diplomat who waited until cameras shifted focus, then deflected with a 5-word response. The CEO who paused until the board's questions died down, then launched one decisive sentence that ended the inquiry. Get ready to master the timing of your return to speech. In the next part, you'll practice recognizing those triggers in your own life and crafting statements so sharp they leave no room for rebuttal, ensuring your words land not out of desperation, but out of undeniable authority. Silence isn't absence, it's precision, it's power. It's the space where dominance is built, not through noise but through refusal. In a world addicted to reaction, silence is rebellion. People expect you to defend yourself. They're conditioned to it. They're waiting for you to explain, to apologize, to clarify, but when you don't, the rules change. You become the anomaly, unreadable, untouchable, unshaken. Here's what most people don't understand. Silence is not passive. It's not avoidance, it's active restraint, it's strategy. It's the conscious decision to withhold energy where it would be wasted. And in that withholding, you signal strength beyond what words can carry. Let's break it down into 3 Machiavellian advantages of strategic silence. You force reflection, not retaliation. Most people speak to control the narrative. But when you don't respond, you don't give them anything to push against. Your silence becomes a mirror. Your accuser is left alone with their own words, their own tone, their own intention. The discomfort grows, not in you, but in them. They begin to second guess. Did I overstep? Did I misread the situation? You shift the power dynamic. The moment you react, you position yourself as the respondent, the one catching up, the one justifying. But silence flips that dynamic. You're no longer playing defense, you're watching, observing, waiting. And people fear those who wait. Why? Because they can't predict your next move. The moment you become unpredictable, you become powerful. You control the frame. Silence reframes the entire exchange. It removes urgency. It shifts the focus from their accusation to your presence. It gives your eventual words weight. People will lean in when you finally speak, because your silence built anticipation. It made your voice rare. And in psychology, rarity creates value. Let's make this real. Imagine you're in a heated meeting. Someone calls out your performance in front of the team. All eyes shift to you. You don't defend. You don't flinch. You just nod once, slowly. You pause. You let the silence hang in the room. That 5-second pause. It becomes a power vacuum. And while everyone else fumbles for interpretation, you've already won. Or picture a partner accusing you of emotional distance. Instead of jumping to prove your love, your loyalty, your effort, you pause, you breathe, you hold their gaze, and then, with absolute calm, you say, "I only speak when there's something real to say." That one sentence, delivered after strategic silence, does more than any monologue could. This is what silence gives you: control, clarity, and compression. Control over the emotional space, clarity in your response, and compression of your message so that when you finally speak, your words cut through like a blade. From Machiavelli to modern leadership psychology, the pattern holds. Those who master the pause are remembered as powerful. Those who rush to speak are forgotten, or worse, manipulated. So here's your next move. Begin practicing silence as a discipline, not avoidance, not coldness, just conscious withholding. The next time someone provokes you, don't respond immediately. Hold, let the silence breathe, watch what shifts in the room. And when you do choose to speak, Make sure it's because you intend to move the room, not just defend your ego. In the final section, we'll explore the cost of this path, the sacred loneliness that comes when you become truly untouchable. Because the moment you stop reacting, you stop belonging to the world that needs you to explain yourself. You step into a different league entirely. If you've made it this far, you already know this isn't about games. It's about control of your energy, your mind, your presence. But let's be clear, silence is only power when it's paired with purpose. If you're silent just to avoid conflict, it's fear. If you're silent to dominate space, that's command. And you're here for command. So this is your moment of commitment, not to the silence itself, but to the version of you who no longer needs to defend who they are. The version of you who doesn't explain, doesn't chase clarity, doesn't beg to be understood. The version of you who has become undeniably sovereign. Write this in the comments, not for the algorithm, but to anchor it in yourself. I speak only when power requires it. Say it once, say it slowly, let it echo back to you. Because that's who you are now. Someone who doesn't fear misinterpretation, someone who allows others to project whatever stories they want, someone who doesn't leak energy through justification. This is the turning point where silence becomes identity. And that identity shifts everything. It changes how you walk into a room, how you handle confrontation, how you respond to manipulation. It rewrites your emotional economy from reaction to reserve, from defense and to detachment, from proving to presence. And when someone next demands your explanation, you won't panic, you'll pause. And in that pause, they'll feel the shift, because they'll realize something terrifying. They no longer have access. So let the words anchor your commitment. Say it now, say it without hesitation. I speak only when power requires it. Not to be cryptic, not to be clever, but because your peace is no longer up for auction, and your voice is no longer on tap for anyone who snaps their fingers. You are no longer in the business of self-defense. You are in the business of dominion. This is the threshold. Type it, mean it, and prepare. Because what comes next isn't applause, it's solitude. And that's the real test. There's a moment, after you stop defending yourself, when the world goes quiet. Not peaceful, quiet. People stop calling. Fewer texts. The noise fades. And for the first time, you notice how much of your identity was built in response to other people's expectations. This silence, it's not just external. It starts to echo inside. And it can feel lonely. But it's not the loneliness of isolation. It's the loneliness of liberation. You're not being punished, you're being emptied, cleared of the noise you used to cling to. And when you've spent years reacting, pleasing, proving, stillness can feel like abandonment. But it's actually the beginning of sovereignty. Understand this. When you stop explaining yourself, people will accuse you of being cold, detached, arrogant. Not because you are, but because they no longer benefit from your emotional labor. You've disrupted the unspoken contract where your identity existed to soothe theirs. And when those relationships begin to fall away, don't chase, don't fill the silence, don't defend your withdrawal. Because what you're feeling isn't rejection, it's refinement. You're being reduced down to your essence, the version of you that existed before the roles, before the masks, before the obligation to be understood. And that version is dangerous. Not violent, dangerous in the way fire is, untouchable, consuming, pure. This stage, the sacred loneliness, is the part no one talks about. The part where you sit in your power and realize how few people ever meet you there. But this is also the filter, the furnace, the moment where those not meant to walk with you fall away and the ones who remain. They don't need your defense. They recognize your silence as presence. So don't rush to fill this void. Let it shape you. Because only in the stillness does the real you rise. The one who no longer explains, the one who no longer reacts, the one who does not chase, but chooses. This loneliness, it's sacred, and it means you're almost through. What's coming next isn't applause, it's rebirth. And when you rise, you'll no longer be accessible. You'll be unmistakable. You've walked through the fire. You've felt the sting of silence, not as punishment but as purification. You've stopped explaining, defending, softening your edges just to make others feel safe. And now, something has shifted. Not around you, within you. You no longer feel the impulse to correct misunderstandings. You no longer scramble to fill silence with proof of your goodness. You've become someone else. Or maybe, you've just returned to who you were before the world told you to justify yourself. This is the integrated self, present but not performing, powerful but not aggressive, silent but fully awake. Your value is no longer tied to how available you are. Your worth is no longer measured by how well you explain yourself. Your identity is no longer something you hand out to anyone who questions it. Now, you operate from stillness. You speak only when energy meets purpose. You conserve attention like wealth. And when you do choose to act, every word, every move lands like a signal. Clear, controlled, complete. You've shifted from defense to definition. You define the space now. You define the rhythm of the conversation. You define who has access and who never did. And the beauty of this moment is that nothing dramatic needs to happen. You don't need to announce your new boundaries. You don't need to confront those who once drained you. Your silence speaks it all. And your new presence enforces what your old self used to explain. This is what power looks like when it's quiet. Not suppressed, but focused. Not hidden, but sacred. You've become the person who waits, watches, moves only when movement matters. And because of that, people feel you more when you say less. They respect you more when you reveal less. They remember you longer because your silence created space for weight. You are no longer performing accessibility. You are no longer emotionally available by default. You are rare. And that rarity has made you unforgettable. This isn't about becoming someone new. It's about remembering who you were before the world trained you to explain yourself to everyone who never earned your truth. This is your integration. This is the return. This is you, complete.